I'm Mike Palladin. I'm with Palladin Protective Systems, and we're in the Fire Command Center of the Leader Building. Basically, with the fire alarm system, it's made to evacuate the building. It's made to get people out of the building in case of fire. On a fire alarm system in a high-rise building, you will get alarms on the floor where that alarm occurred, the floor below it, and the floor above it. Those would be the only areas where you're going to hear the recorded message telling you to evacuate the building and also see the strobes flashing. That's the way high-rise buildings are set up, because the feeling is that the structure of the building is sound until it gets to other areas, and there's no reason to have a mass evacuation, which could actually cause more problems than just getting people out of the area where the fire is. And when you do have a fire, it's going to be showing up on the screen here. It'll give you a complete description showing what type of device it is, whether it's a pull station, it's a smoke detector, it's a heat detector, or it's the sprinkler system, in which case it'll say water flow. And it'll tell you where it is, what floor it's on, and a general description within the building as to where it is, north stairwell, south stairwell, and different things like that. Other things that occur at the same time, locks will release in the stairwells, so that people have free entrance and exit from the stairwell. You will also have fire dampers that are going to shut down to keep smoke from passing from one part of a floor to another part of a floor. But the biggest thing is noticing where the problem is and getting people away from that area. An orderly evacuation of the building. After the fire department gets here, they can give you an all clear, and at that time you can go and try and figure out what actually caused the problem. It may have been a false alarm, it may have been a real alarm, but let the fire department make that determination. Just because you see where the alarm was, don't send people up there running to it. Just help people get out of the building. The idea of the whole thing is it's a life safety thing. You want people to get out of the building and be safe outside of the building. A few maintenance things. Power panels are in the next room over here. I don't know if they're locked. Are they locked, Bob?
They have keys to them too.
Okay. Fire alarm panel is number 12, and Bob's going to get a circuit breaker lock to go on that. This is on the generator, so in case of a power failure, it should kick over to generator power. We also have battery power on the system. So even in the event of a failure of the generator, we're still going to have battery power here. Everything in this building is backed up with batteries. The amplifiers, the strobes, everything has battery backup on them. But this is where your power connection is. So if you get something that shows a power failure and it's showing at the main panel, this is where it is. There are also going to be circuit breakers on other floors where you're going to see some of these panels like this. These are booster panels adding extra power to the strobe circuits throughout the building. And they will all be labeled showing where the circuit breaker is, what the number of the circuit breaker is. So
All out of the south
they're all
side
on the
emergency
south side.
panels.
Do they ever push any of these buttons?
Really, I tell people that there are 3 buttons that are really important for them to push: acknowledge, silence, and reset. And they're right up here on the upper right: acknowledge, signal, silence, and reset. Really, you do not want to push signal silence until you know that there is no longer an emergency. You can hit acknowledge. Acknowledge is going to stop the system from beeping right here. And it'll just show that you are aware. It'll say whatever point was in trouble that it has been acknowledged. Just like this one says acknowledged trouble. Somebody has pushed the button since they got that signal from that duct detector. Somebody did push the button and acknowledge it, so it shows up here on the top that it was acknowledged.
Do it show what a duct detector is?
It'll show where it is. It says right here, it's a south fire damper. It's on the 15th floor.
So that would be in suite 20 in the kitchen, right?
Yes,
Kitchen area?
Yes.
Other side of the slop sink,
yeah, you've got the stairwell on the south side, then you have a slop sink, and then it's gonna be in that first suite,
that first suite,
right next to where the slop sink is.
right in their kitchen area, there's two or three,
No, they're not, they're
yeah.
they're big enough to get your head through, and that's it. You're not gonna get your shoulders on
Right,
it.
right, I got you.
Because they wouldn't put any bigger in.
It's coming out of the speakers. It will still keep your strobe lights flashing.
Flashing.
So it's gonna still indicate there is an emergency in the building. It's gonna silence things. Quite often, the fire department wants to have things silenced when they get here, so they can actually hear themselves talking back and forth on the radios. But, you know, in a normal occurrence, you know, I would say, you know, for you guys, you know, do not hit the silence, you know, let the fire department take care of silencing things. And then, if there would happen to be an occurrence where a sprinkler head went off, that's gonna be a water flow alarm. It's gonna show up here, water flow. It's gonna tell you which floor the sprinkler riser is. Now, with the sprinkler system, it's all coming up the north stairwell. So it's gonna say, you know, 10th floor or 6th floor or whatever, water flow. A water flow alarm is not silenceable. That's per the fire code. So if a sprinkler head goes off, you're not gonna be able to silence it until somebody shuts the water off to it. And again, that's one of those things, there is a shut-off valve right there in the stairwell by that water flow switch. But again, it's something that,
They gotta do.
unless you absolutely know for sure there is no fire and that somebody banged a sprinkler head and started the water flowing, then you ought to leave it till the fire department gets here. You know, in a situation, if you know that somebody, you know, was doing something and they knocked the sprinkler head off, which more than likely is gonna happen, you know, somewhere in a basement area or a common area, something like that, as opposed to where the suites are. You know, in that case, water damage is critical, and I can understand why you wanna shut it off. But normally, you know, you wanna wait for the fire department to say, you know, it's okay to shut it off. And those valves are right in the stairwell. You're gonna need a ladder to get up to them, but those valves are in the stairwell.
Right, stairwell.
You know, duct detectors, smoke detectors, both, they detect your smoke particles by reflection of light. And dust reflects off the light just the same as the smoke particles do. You know, so dust and dirt are the enemy of smoke detectors. So if you get into a situation where you got a lot of dust and dirt, you want to be careful. You want to try to cover the smoke detectors. If you do cover them, always make sure you take that cover off. You know, just use it, you know, if you're grinding or, you know, sanding some drywall or something like that, just to prevent false alarms, you want to do something like that.
What's the best way to clean them with, like, the air?
Compressed air, yes. Yep, canned air, the same stuff you use to clean your computer, keyboards and things like that, yes.
Do you have to pull anything, or you could just do it while it's still connected?
No, this is what your head is, just like this. It's, you know, same as what you have on the ceiling over there. And you can see the little screen there, and you're just going to want to aim the compressed air into that area around
Right
that
in
screen.
there, and it won't make it go off?
No, it should not make it go off. I mean, you're putting clean air into it.
Right.
And then after you do something like that, you know, it's probably, I mean, like in this case where it's showing that it's dirty for maintenance required, then you want to reset the panel and it should clear that away.
But the ones in the duct is different from that one that you just showed me.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Number one, they're up above the ceilings, they're in,
Right.
you know, confined space areas.
Yeah.
They are underneath a clear plastic cover, which needs to be removed before you can get to those things. They are not easy to remove. They can be twisted out, but they're just the way they are. It's very difficult to grip them to get them out. The red phone here is for the fire department use. They have their headsets in the cabinet over here that can be plugged into stations on the stairwells, north and south stairwells. So if they are running up and down the stairwells, some of the high-rise buildings, their radios don't work all that well. But by lifting the phone, pushing a button for south stairs, north stairs, you know, or, you know, the areas near the elevators, they could talk to somebody in those stairwells using the emergency headsets. The other unit here, microphone, can be used by anybody in the building to make announcements throughout the building. You've got buttons here for each floor in the building. You also have an all-call button. If you press one of those buttons or press a series of those buttons, you just pick up the microphone, you can key the microphone, and you can make an announcement over the speakers to any floor or all floors within the building. It could be a situation where you're announcing that, it's not an alarm. It could be a situation where you can tell people, hey, we have a problem on a floor, and we are checking out the situation, and that you people, on, the 5 floors above it, just stand by, we'll let you know what's going on. It can be used, actually it can be used for any type of general announcement at any time, just strictly by pushing the button, and it'll just set every, for whatever floor, whether you push the all-call or you push it for any individual floor. If someone is testing the system, whether it's the fire department coming in to test or you have some kind of inspector coming in to test, there is an audio-visual disable button down here. That will shut off all your strobes, it'll shut off all your speakers. So you can do some testing of your system without notifying everybody in the building. Or it could be if somebody is working on something. All of a sudden, buildings get remodeled all the time. We got something in the way, okay? Well, while we're working on that, let's just make sure we don't evacuate the building.
Okay.
So we can disable that. They can work on, if it's relocating a pull station or smoke detectors in a ceiling tile where now they want to put a light, so they're going to relocate it to a different area. You can make sure that everything is disabled so you're not going to be evacuating the building. The only problem is, if you do have a real situation at that time,
All right.
either you want to quickly enable it, or you want to come over here and make an announcement that there is a situation you need to evacuate the building. And it's anytime you disable something, there is a liability. You need to make sure that you have some kind of fire watch, that you have other people aware in the building that things have been disabled. Because if you're the only ones that know it and you're working out, out on the dock somewhere, and you've got all the audio visuals disabled and all of a sudden there's a fire up on the 10th floor, you're not going to get any sound. You're not going to get any strobe lights. So you need to make other people aware of what's going on in the building anytime. Main elevators, for the most part, the smoke detectors are on either side of the elevator lobby, above the elevator doors. Over at the freight elevator, the smoke detector is going to be mounted in the ceiling right in front of the freight elevator. In case of fire, or in case of smoke being detected by those units, any floor except the first floor, it's going to send that elevator down to the first floor. If there is smoke detected on the first floor, it's going to send those elevators up to the second floor. The whole purpose of that is to keep people from being in the elevator and all of a sudden the elevator door is opening up and there's smoke there and they're stuck in a fire or a smoke situation and can't get away from it. So the idea is anytime smoke is detected, just get the elevators down to the ground floor or to the second floor, either one. The evacuation message is always going to tell you to use the stairwells in case of emergency. Do not use the elevators. The reason is you don't want to get stuck in that elevator in the wrong part of the building.
They'll see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if anything happens with the fire panel at all, whether it's a trouble signal, a supervisory signal, or an alarm signal, it will send a signal to the monitoring center. And the monitoring center will contact you. In case of an alarm, in case of a fire alarm, they're going to contact Cleveland Fire Department first. If they get a supervisory signal or something like what's showing here that a duct detector is dirty, they are going to call here. They're not going to be calling the fire department. That will stick out through the bottom. There's also a little yellow sign in here that says activated.
If you pull it.
If it has been pulled, yes. To reset it, put your key in, open the door, At that time, this will close back up.
Oh, okay.
The little tab will come back up
Is it
flush.
motorized?
It's just spring-loaded.
No, spring.
Okay. Close the door, and it's automatically reset.
Yeah,
That's all, so all you have to do, put your key in, open the door, close the door. There is a little switch here. You don't have to touch that switch, because when you open the door and close it, and put it back, it automatically resets it.
Rear one gets knocked off.
I have my.
Bang against it, and just rip the front out of the wall.